Look this way. Wait, these people I don't know if I
Okay, we're back on track. Alrighty, well, we've just entered Calabogie Sound. Oh, real quick, the side of the boat you boarded, the starboard side, you've got lots and lots of islands out here. As a matter of fact, take a good look around, all you'll see. If you look way out to your right, I'm talking about way out to your right, you can make out the bridge that brought you on to Hilton Head. Where it touches to the right, a marina facility. Just to the right of that, some high ground there. Little clump of trees. Those are called live oaks, and they're growing on Spanish Wells Plantation. You know, the name pretty much says it all for Spanish Wells. It's high ground with artesian wells. And I'm sure that the Spanish went there for, let's say, privately owned island called Point out in the water. See that there behind us, way down to the left? This little point that lands in South Beach on Sea Pines Plantation. You know, I don't know know if you ever noticed Hilton Head on a chart or on a map, but if you notice its shape, how it resembles a running shoe, well, that's the big toe right down there. This sole is trying to reach the heel of this poor world. Brought you on to Hilton Head. Privately held islands. You get that big round island way out there to the right. Just about adjacent to us now. That's called Barataria. Then move from there. They have been raising thoroughbred horses for many a blue moon for horse racing purposes, and they've turned just a penny profit doing it. Now we come to this big island off my port bow to the left here. This is Dufusky Island. This is the first key. It's 3 miles by 5 miles, about 5,300 acres, a little over 1/3 the size of Hilton Head, with 1/100th of the population. No walking, no driving to Dufusky Island. As a matter of fact, the only thing left of an era long gone past. Once we get past the dock here, the Hay Point dock, we get a really government to buy this old home coming into view for $1. It'll be in view just past the dock here. That's right, $1. The deal was, however, the home had to remain whole and intact, while international paper moved it from St. Simons to here on Dufusky. So what they did, they got themselves a series of barges and tugboats, and they loaded the home on barges, and they moved it up the end. Real quaint looking. You know, they bought that home for $1. That's a good deal and a true story. However, now let's talk about moving it, getting it here, remodeling expenditures. Drove that final price tag to almost $1 million. The next home's come into view. The first home, I don't know who owns that one, it's a private home. The archways, the reason you've got archways home is Robert Payne's home. It's his boat there, 20-inch and a little outboard there. And he's got several patents to his credit in the computer ship industry. Exactly what, I don't know, but it's made a pretty penny. It makes a lot of money. Oh, his boat, the name of the boat, it's called the Painful. That just about sums that up. Well, let's see, folks, left you off in the Intracoastal Waterway, which is a good place. You can go almost anywhere in the Intracoastal. Well, we're heading over to the Freeport Marine at the Cooper River Landing, located on the island to our port side left, Dufusky Island, there. And you know, up prior to the Civil War, the port of Savannah was the second busiest port on the eastern seaboard, second behind Boston. A lot of ships would come and go out of the port of Savannah. Well, again, they would go ahead and move that cotton by water to the port of Savannah and to the ancestors of the hurricane of 1893. Because, you see, folks, it was during that hurricane that it brought such a huge tidal surge with it that everything you see, right, let's harvest these low country oysters. They're a little smaller in size, sweeter in flavor. Again, they harvest them here and they would move them to, well, there's our dockage, that first dock there. Jennifer's going to tie us up and your day will begin. And upon arrival, you good folks will have some options. Although today is
blood. Between 1710 and 1728, there were 3 skirmishes between the Yemasee Indians, who by now had allied themselves with the Spanish in Florida and the settlers in the area. In 1710, they came up to raid the range in size from 1/4 to 1/3 of an acre, and they sell for between $55,000 to $65,000. They overlooked the salt marsh, which in turn over prize of fort builders, killed them all except one man they brought back to St. Augustine as a hostage. They say the sands ran red with blood. 100 years later, in about 1668, a man 90 homes back there, small homes back there. Mount Carmel was their church. But it blew down in a storm at about 1935, and it was rebuilt here and called Mount Carmel Baptist Church No. 2. Mrs. Hamilton, who owned the property, gave the property to the church, and when they built that little school there, they called it the Jane Hamilton School. But neither of these buildings have every day. They have one computer for every 2 children. When the children go to high school, that's a Reese Jones golf course, an equestrian center, a beach club. Here to work in the either on constructions or in the various plantations. A lot of the contractors bring over trucks and pickups and so on here. When they exhaust them, they just, foundations were really getting pretty rotten and termite ridden, so they are raising the foundations now. But we have services here every Sunday. The pews, the pulpit, the altar is all handmade, and it's really very attractive. The chandeliers were whale oil lamps when they first came over from England. They have since been electrified, and they're very attractive now at night. You notice the two front doors in the church. Years ago, one door was for men and one door was for women, and there was a partition built down the center of the church, and the idea was that men sat on one side and women sat on the other, and the partition was to prevent the men from watching the women during the service and paying attention to what the preacher was saying. That area in front of the church, the flat area, that's called tabby. Tabby is a Spanish word for mud, and it consists of only 6. But people would come to the praise houses or the shout houses, and they'd read from the Bible, they'd sing plantation songs, they'd sing spirituals, and they'd do some kind of a shuffle dance, and the only music they had was one log beaten in rhythm on another log. Some of the other praise houses might have had a man that played a harmonic or a Jew's harp or something, but people would dance until 2 or 3 in the morning. That was recreation. Life was hard on this island. When cotton left, people began to call themselves a river people because that's how they made their living, from the Cooper River. And through the 5th grade, there were generally about 17 children in the school. But when they had to go to middle school in the 6th grade, that meant the school bus at 5:30 in the morning. Island a quarter down right into the Atlantic Ocean. The live oaks were left standing for 2 reasons. The women working in the fields would put their children food or wheat to survive because it was in the water. You could just barely make it out. Those wooden pilings. 80 years ago, that's where that lighthouse was. And it'll give you an idea of the erosion that has taken place here. Directly out, about 7 miles, there's a light station and a radio station. And undertaker, and there's a saying on the island that Granny Grant will take you in and Granny Grant will take you out. She birthed you and she buried you. Over here on our right, man, a family by the name of Boyd lives in there. Mr. Boyd